Hello. I thought I would start today by telling a little story from my own life, which I found amazing. And what happened was that there was a memorial service for my mother and many, perhaps hundreds more people in her parish who had passed away in the past year. And because of the pandemic, Dharmadas and I watched this memorial service on YouTube live. And because they were reading all of the names of people, and it was taking much longer than I had anticipated, at one point during the service, I got up from the computer screen and went into the kitchen to turn off the stove because I didn't want things to burn on the stove. And I probably left during the time that this person's name would have been called, because his name is Father Noon, and I left probably right during the ends and came back in time to hear the S's where my mother and her name was read. So at the very end of the service, the priest said, "There's one name that we forgot to add to this list, and that's Father Noon's name." And he went on to describe a little bit about Father Noon's advanced age and some of the postings that he had had during his life. And I realized that it was my very dear friend who had baptized me when I was a young child. I wasn't baptized at birth. I was maybe 7 or 8 years old when I got baptized. So I remember my baptism. I remember my parents and Father Noon being there. And what a joyful occasion it was. How very different to be able to remember that moment. And I remember being baptized and laughing and just being thrilled and joyful. And Father Noon was my confessor, you could say. He was the one that I loved to talk to. Even as a teenager, I remember taking confession from him and having him give me some wonderful advice. And again, he got me laughing about it all, which put everything into perspective. And he was just a very great soul. So after this memorial service, and I was alerted to the fact that he had passed away, and he was nearly 100. I was able to go on the internet and look at some of the facts of his life and have a moment of gratitude, of remembrance, and just an opportunity to pray for this soul who had helped me so much in my life during those formative years that were very difficult. And so that, my friends, is an example of karma. What goes around comes around. People that we have loved and who have been kind to us, that kindness is never lost. That friendship is like a brilliant gold thread that winds through the tapestry of our lives. And those relationships are forever because they're in God. And so when we talk about karma, what we're talking about is that tapestry, and we can't escape it. We can't be outside of it. We can't, unless there's one crucial way, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I have always been struck by the passage in the Bible that says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." And this passage is telling us, don't be mistaken. You can't avoid your karma. What kind of energy you put out is the kind of energy that comes back to you. I've often thought that's one of the meanings of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, because by golly, they will do unto you what you have done unto them. It's the law of karma. What goes out comes back. It's the boomerang effect. There was another wonderful little viral video that recently came to my attention. I usually don't get snagged by any of that sort of thing, but this one was on national news, and I happened to see it. There was a man in somewhere, maybe Idaho, I'm not quite sure now, but he was just a factory worker, and his car broke down on the way to work. He was just a couple of miles from his job, and so I think the battery went dead, and he thought, well, I'll just leave the truck here, I'll charge my battery after work. So he pulled his skateboard out of the back of his truck. He grabbed a bottle of cranberry juice and his phone, and he took a selfie video of himself riding his skateboard, drinking cranberry juice. And he also was lip-syncing to a Fleetwood Mac song, doing a fabulous job. And you can look this up. If you just look up cranberry juice guy, you'll find it on YouTube. The outpouring of support for this man was phenomenal. People found out that he was living in an RV in front of his brother's house so he could take a shower at his brother's house. He had 2 children, he has a fiance, he had this busy life and not a lot of opportunity to get ahead in his job. And the support that flooded in, because you can just tell this man is a sweet, kind-hearted, wonderful guy. And he got enough support financially that he paid cash for a house for $320,000. And Ocean Spray Cranberry just went nuts. They gave him a brand new cranberry-colored truck filled in the back, pickup truck filled in the back with cranberry juice. So it was fabulous advertising for them. What a world we live in. But it's a beautiful example of what Master said, your own will surely come to you. We don't have to be stressed. We do have to put out energy. We have to put out the right kind of energy. Loving, kind, high, joyful energy. And as Sri Yukteswar said, everything in future will improve if you are making the right spiritual effort now. So let's take heart from this. And I promised you I would tell you how you can get out of your karma. The one way that we can circumvent our karma is to get rid of the ego. Because the ego is the post to which our karma is tied. So the energy that goes out like a boomerang comes back to that post of ego and hits it. And if we can eliminate the ego, suppress it to the point where it is not applicable anymore, not suppressing it so much, we can't, what use is suppression, the Gita tells us. So we can't really suppress it, but we can transcend it. We can work to recognize it whenever it rears its head in our consciousness, and we can move the energy away from that into God consciousness, into realizing, no, I don't want to think that way. That's not worthy of a devotee searching for God. I will not give any energy to that. There's a beautiful Rubaiyat passage that says, "Ah, moon of my delight," which means God consciousness. The moon of heaven is rising once again. And that means the endless cycles of Maya, light and dark, waxing and waning, good and evil, all of the drama of Maya. The moon of heaven is rising once again. How oft hereafter will she look through this same garden after me in vain? So what Master tells us, what that passage means is, once we're in God consciousness, or if we put ourselves in line and attunement with that, moving towards absolute God consciousness, then the moon of heaven, the moon of this Maya, is not applicable to us anymore. Because that moon of heaven will look for the ego, but won't be able to find it. And so that boomerang of karma has nowhere to go. In Swami's commentary based on Yogananda's teachings of that passage, he says, the universe is looking for an absolute omission because our ego has dissolved into omnipresence. That's what Jesus meant when he said, the foxes have holes, but the Son of God has nowhere to put his head, to rest his head, because omnipresent. That's the consciousness that is blissful. That is the consciousness that we want to achieve, that we will achieve eventually. So let's put aside all of the ego's petty littleness and identify more and more with our cosmic reality, with our soul reality. What we sow, that is what we will reap. So let's sow goodness, kindness, trust in God, and joy.